Significance is really the yield or the result of self-worth and self-value. So when we have self-worth and self-value, then we truly walk in our significance. It's like self-worth plus self-value will yield significance. And it's not about significance outside of self. It's significance within myself.
Everyone, and welcome to another episode of Marriage Matters. This is a podcast where we talk about marriage matters because marriage matters. That's what it's all about.
Yes, it is.
So if you are watching us for the very first time, my name is Glenn Coleman, and I'm joined as always by my compassionate and thoughtful wife,
Tanya Coleman.
Oh, okay. My bad, I said your name. My bad. I wasn't being very thoughtful of you.
No, it's fine. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for calling me compassionate and thoughtful and compassionate.
You are both of those, very thoughtful. That's why you're such a good gift giver. I'm not a good gift giver because I'm a thoughtful person, but not in that way.
You're just more practical.
Yeah. Anyway.
In your giving.
Anyway, how was your week?
My week was good. I had to think about it. Like, how was my week? It was a good week.
Mm-hmm.
Busy week. Thursday was very busy. It was very busy. I was nonstop Thursday. So
your clients been picking up?
Yeah, they have.
Yeah.
We had a little slowness with the weather around here, but that caused some people to stay home. But
okay,
it's all good.
All right. Well, I'm glad you had a great week.
Yeah. What about you?
Same. Busy week. Always. Nothing super duper out of the ordinary.
Mm-hmm.
But it was extraordinary.
Extraordinary.
It was extraordinary just because I got to spend it with you.
Aww.
And my family, and
Thank you.
So it's always a great week.
It is.
Anything else you want to add about that?
No.
Okay.
No. Really
So this is our comment of the week. So we've been sharing every week. We want to share a comment, and so we just so appreciate our viewers, our listeners, our commenters, the community. And I don't want to say our viewers. I hate saying that. Like our community.
Yes, community.
That's what we're doing. We're creating a community. So this week's comment comes from
Nyasha Roberts. I know her.
You know Nyasha?
Yes.
Okay.
Nyasha, she is a part of the Sister Circle, the group of women that I connected with back in 2020 online, made some great connections online.
Community and connection.
Yes.
We're going to talk about that a little bit today.
Yeah. So, she's one of our sisters from the Sister Circle. She says, enjoy listening to the conversation. Very relaxed and real.
That's it.
Thank you, Nyasha.
Keeping it real.
Yeah, she's an awesome, just an awesome woman. I enjoy her.
Well, thanks Nyasha for watching, and
yeah. So, I'm still reaping the rewards and benefits out of
always. And that's
2020 and the pandemic.
That's what those programs,
I made friends all over.
I was going to say that's what those programs are all about.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about just, a lot of times we go to these conferences or join these online groups but it's more about building relationships. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that it's about with my friend, we always call people friends. We really don't know these people. We feel like we know these people because we listen to them, watch them so much. But Jamal King, Make Real Estate Real, he always talks about exposure and your
You're going
circle.
to know Jamal King one day.
I will. I will. I'm going to know Jamal personally one day. But he always talks about your circle and your exposure dictates where you go in life. And so, that's his old saying. I'm not going to say it the way it was told to me. I'm going to give you the PC version. But if you hang around 9 broke people, you're bound to be the 10th.
Well, hello.
So your circle, it matters. So
it does. It absolutely matters.
So the other thing we've been doing is every week we want to give you a tip, trick, or a tool. So I guess this week maybe is a tip. I guess it would be. But I know this is not a word, but I'm going to say it. Unisolate.
Okay.
Unisolate. So, we've been in this pandemic for 2 years, and everybody's so used to being up to themselves. And last weekend, we had an opportunity to hang out with some dear friends of ours who we really hadn't hung out with in a while,
really
like all together, all four of us. And it was really great. It was just refreshing. And it's something happens when you hang out with other couples. You need to find you other couples just to hang around, to be around. Yeah. And you want to try to find couples that are going to be a positive influence if you can. But a couple of things one thing that it does is it lets you realize that everybody has struggles. Not that we're getting into other people's businesses, but when you hang out with each other, sometimes you tend to talk about some of the things that you're going through, and so you see other couples' struggles. And again, not that we're judging. That's not the goal or the point of this, but it's good to see, because sometimes when you isolate, you think you're the only ones that are going through or having communication issues or whatever it is, and I'm not gonna say it makes it easier, but it makes it easier when you know that you're not the only one. And unless you see that there are no perfect relationships, no matter what Instagram shows us, there are no perfect relationships. And the other thing is, it helps you to grow. For me, it really helps me grow. Just to hang out with other couples and sometimes inadvertently, you just talk about things, and it just. Hearing what they're doing or hearing what, whether that's with the kids, with them, with each other, with the businesses that they're doing, whatever it is, their careers, it helps and it spurs growth for us. So,
iron sharpens iron.
So yeah, iron sharpens iron. So unisolate, get out there, find you a couple of couples. A few couples. And like Tanya said, you're not limited to your city or your family.
Not at all.
There's so many things online. You can join the Marriage Matters Facebook group. There's some couples in there, and just kind of, hey guys, what's going on up in here?
What y'all doing this
weekend? And the other thing, we mentioned this last week, but we've joined, out of joining an online community, we met another couple, Jonathan and Amanda Carminate, who are just a great couple. They've become friends. We've never met them in person, but we met them via Zoom.
Yes,
and they do a quarterly date night online. So we're gonna let you guys know when the next one is, so you can be a part.
Yeah, we need to have them on so that we're gonna
have them on. But anyway, unisolate. So that's our tip, trick, or tool of the week.
Very good.
Tips, tricks, and tools.
Find some healthy people to hang with.
My jingle.
I'm sorry.
They got it though. My bad. Go ahead.
No, it's fine.
Find some healthy people.
Find some healthy people to hang out with. I mean, sometimes our choices, we don't choose well. And so those experiences are not the same. So we just need to choose well. It's okay.
So let's get into this week's topic.
Let's do it.
So
speaking of choosing well.
Last week we talked about every action. And we used Newton's third law.
Which you did your homework on. Good job.
And it basically says for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. And what I was saying last week was, that doesn't necessarily apply to relationships, because we were talking about the why behind, I was saying that a lot of times our reaction is instead of us understanding the why behind what our spouse is doing, we just react to it, and that can end up not so great. But it dawned on me that, Newton was actually right. And go figure, he was, he was probably a lot smarter than me. But I'm not, and I know he was right. I know he was right as far as the laws of motion, but I'm saying, I'll just say this, I was wrong. This does apply to relationships. Because what he said was, to every action there is a equal and opposite reaction. And it says this statement means that every interaction, in every interaction, there's a pair of forces acting on the two interacting objects. The size of the force on the first object equals the size of the force on the second object. And what I had to keep in mind was these are laws of motion. So in order for motion to take place, there has to be an equal and opposite reaction.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So last week we talked about the pre-action, and we talked about the why. I said that already because what we do, is directly related to our past experiences. So this week I really want to concentrate on the second part of that. There is a pair of forces acting on two interacting objects. The size of the forces on the first object equals the size of the force on the second object. So it's like this, in other words, if I have two balls on a table and I roll one ball and this ball hits the other ball, it's going to react in the opposite direction with the equal force. Right. And so that's what we talk about. And what really brought this to light for me was the infamous Oscar slap.
Yeah.
So, we're watching the Oscars and I'm like, whoa, what did that just happen? So
I think as everyone was, it was just like, wait, what? Is this a skit? What? Wait.
So in that situation, or let me not, before we go to the Oscar thing, let's just talk about what kind of happened to me, because that was not an equal and opposite reaction. Even though what Chris Rock may have said was insulting, well, it was insulting.
Very much so.
Will Smith's reaction was equal, but it was not opposite. So a lot of times that's what happens in relationships. And I don't know if you remember this. I used to say this all the time. If Tanya goes to a 5, I have to go to a -5. Just so we could stay at 0. But what happens so often in relationships, there's no opposite reaction.
Right.
There's an equal and opposing reaction. And if there's equal and opposing, just like those two balls, or we could say this, in a car accident, it's not an equal and opposite. It's two opposing forces, and we call that a wreck. So a lot of times that happens in our relationships. There's no opposite reaction. We're both, instead of, if you go to a 5, I go to a 5. And now we're at a 10. We're not, so the goal is to keep it at 0, right? Right. So in order for motion or growth to happen, in order for problems to be solved and rectified, in order for us to come up with solutions in our relationships, there must be an equal and opposite reaction. And so the issue is, a lot of times in our relationships, this is something that we're not taught. This is something that we are not,
we don't see it.
We're not willing to do. We don't see it, or we don't feel like doing it, because I want to get my point. If you're going to get your point across, if you're going to get your point across, I'm going to get my point across.
It's like, I was just sitting here thinking of, I call it the 8th grade hall response. So, when I was just teaching school, although I taught high school most of the time, except for 1 year. But anyway, besides the point. But in most schools, even being in school, so you're in middle school, the 8th grade hall is where things go down.
Okay.
And it's like having that 8th grade hall response. It's just, and my students or kids would often say, well, Ms. Coleman, I can't let so-and-so, they're not going to play me. They're not going to do this. And so, and these are teenagers, these are kids talking. But as adults, sometimes we haven't learned how not to respond that way. You know what I mean? It's just like, because you said what you said, or you did what you did, and I was disrespected, or I felt disrespected, I'm going to show you, how to be disrespectful. I'm going to show you that you can't get away with that with me. Right. And sure, of course, we do have to, and I believe in teaching people how to treat us, but our response can't be the same as theirs.
Yeah. And, I said this before, but I'll say it again. This is one of the things I learned with our girls, and, they are disrespecting me. So what do? I disrespect them. If you're going to yell at me, I'm going to yell back and you're not going to yell at me.
And so now you're looking like a kid too.
Right. And so, but my point is, what I was saying, no, you're good. What I was saying is though, even though that response from me may have been warranted, in other words, no, let me say it this way.
The corrective
action. It was true. It's true what I said. You should not be disrespecting me. But me saying it in a disrespectful way back to them is reinforcing, even though I'm saying you shouldn't disrespect.
You're saying the right thing.
I'm reinforcing a atmosphere or a culture or a culture of disrespectfulness in this house. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of times what happens in relationships, and people, we see it all the time. I've seen it in our relationship, and we see it with couples that we work with. Nobody is willing to go to the -5.
Right.
Everybody wants to be at the +5. And I'm telling you, you are never going to work through the issue if everybody wants to be at a 5. Right? Go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's that everyone wants to be at a 5 because everyone wants to be right. I want to, what I say or my thought, my perspective should shut down what you're thinking or how you're behaving because I'm right. And no one wants to be humble. You know what I'm saying? And even if I am right, humility means that, I'll go to that -5 because there's not going to be a resolve here if we both stay at the 5.
Why do you think that is? What is it in us that just has to be right or has to prove our rightness? What is that? What do you think that is?
I think it's pride. Now that pride has developed probably over time and definitely for some reasons. There's some seed in the ground, some roots to why we feel we have to be prideful in those kinds of moments. But it's pride. I think that we can be very prideful, in our marital relationships and our relationships with our children and others, where I need to prove to you that I'm right or you're wrong, or I need to prove to you that I'm the authority and you're not. I think a lot of it is pride. Now, there are some things, like I said, beneath the pride. Okay. That's my thought.
Yeah, and I would add to that. I think it's a lack of self-value.
That
because
breeds pride.
Yeah. For me, a lot of for a long time, I needed people to know how good I was. I wanted people to know, and I would thrive off of the outward. The outward compliments, the
pats on the back.
And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm saying if that's your sole source of achievement or value, then that's a very dangerous place to live. And I think that's why it's so important to us what other people think about us. And I mean, again, there are people in my life that I do want them to think well of me. It's very important to me how Tanya sees me or how my kids see me. But if my whole being is based on that, then I think I'm going to really struggle in life. But what I have found, and this is just meet Glenn. I'm not saying anybody else, but what I found is the more I value myself, the less I need others' approval.
1,000%.
And the less I need others' approvals, the more I can step back and go to that -5. And so much to the point where, I could be in in conversation or in a meeting with others, and I find myself more and more not having to have to be the one that's right in the room, even when I know I'm right. Mm-hmm. And what they're saying, and I know there's different scenarios to this, and there's different times when you should speak up. But I just, it's like, I'm not gonna, if you need to be, because I've been in so many situations where other people, they just needed to be up front, or they needed to be the one. Have
something to say.
And I'm like, okay, well, if that's what you need, then I'm going to let you do that. And no, I'm not going to feel any kind of way, especially, like in a corporate setting, because here's the deal. At the end of the day, my checks are still coming to my direct deposit, or being direct deposited into my bank account. So I don't have to prove and make myself feel like I am the guy, because here's what I've discovered. Eventually, if I am the guy, then they're going to have to circle back anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that to be bragging, but what I'm saying is I don't have to enforce my bigness or my
your knowledge,
my knowledge or my value. I don't have to prove to others. I know my worth. I know my value. And so then I don't have to prove that to anybody. I know who I am, right? And I'm secure. I'm not gonna say I'm becoming more secure in my identity. And I guess that goes all the way back to what we were saying. So therefore, ego, I think, is one of the biggest things that stops us from backing down. And this is another one of my sayings I say all the time, and I'm gonna let you talk because I know I'm talking a lot.
No,
but I always say about the, not liking the way you say certain things to me. And that's true. You should not disrespect me.
Absolutely.
And we know, and even in the Word of God, it talks about that it says women respect, basically says respect your husband. And it says husbands love your wife, because for most men, love is equal to respect.
Sure.
And for most women, respect is equal to love. So a lot of the men they struggle with the way people talk to them.
Sure.
The
way their wives talk to them. The way their wives,
right. But I always say this: when you would talk to me a certain way, one of the things that I had to start doing, Holy Spirit told me, stop listening to how she's saying it and listening to what she's saying it. And the only way I could do that is I really had to put my ego. I had to get over, and I had to understand that my value does not be, if Tanya talks cash crazy, which she don't talk cash crazy.
Cash crazy.
I'm just saying, that's the saying.
I know.
But if she talks cash crazy to me, that doesn't diminish me as a man.
Sure.
That does not take my manhood.
I'm not liking the shirt. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Fix what you need to fix, girl.
I'm good.
And I think for Will Smith in that moment, part of what was diminished was his manhood.
Absolutely.
Because if you look at it, he was laughing at first, but then he saw
his wife's response,
and he was like, "Oh, wait a minute." And then if you read Will Smith's book, there's some history there with that, and how, his dad was abusive toward his mom, and he felt useless because he couldn't defend her. So there's a lot of underlying things there.
Absolutely.
But I think in that moment, it was like somebody just took my manhood, and I'm not going to let that happen again. And that was just one aspect, but I think there's multiple things. But my point is a lot of times we react in a way because we feel like someone is taking our self-worth by insulting us. And it's like, okay, one thing is like, okay, I've learned to ask myself, well, is what they're saying true? And it's like, no, okay, well, if it's not true, then why am I reacting this way? And I know it's easy to say sitting here in this chair on this podcast. And I'm telling you that I don't always succeed at doing this. But what I'm saying is I'm not where I used to be. Sure. And I'm growing in that. And the one thing I had to do was, number one, understand my value. And number two, understanding my value helped me to relax my ego, if I could say it that way.
Absolutely. Many people, probably most people, there are some people who are very naturally, they're just very confident and reassured in themselves and the world around them. A lot of that comes from, their attachment style, how they were parented, how they grew up, how their parents, show up in the world and all of that. But many, many people are looking for significance in the world. And the reason why many people look for significance is because they have not felt significance historically, again, coming from childhood stuff to middle school stuff, or not say middle school, I mean that age, to their experiences in adulthood and relationships and all of these. So it's a lot of underlining reasons why people don't feel significant enough to be upfront or to be the head or be the leader or show up in the world a certain way. And it looks like from that perspective that everyone else is doing better or everyone else is ahead of me and that it looks that way when we're in that mindset of comparing our lives and ourselves to other people. And then we feel less significant. We feel insignificant. So there may come a time where if this person has not healed those areas, they are doing things or showing up in the world in a way outside of character to make themselves feel significant.
Yeah.
I think what the work that we have to do is one, full self-acceptance of who we are, learning to accept who we are, learning to love who we are, and embracing that first. And then I truly believe that then we can create the person, the self that God has intended for us to be, because we have to fully accept ourselves in the way that he created us before we can really show up and become that person, and also get to a place to where we can create the life that we want. So a lot of us, and what you were talking about, a lot of people are looking for significance. And so for me, and that's a word I've been really working with for a little while here, that's where significance is really the yield or the result of self-worth and self-value. So when we have self-worth and self-value, then we truly walk in our significance. It's like self-worth plus self-value will yield significance. And it's not about significance outside of self. It's significance within myself.
That's good.
You know what I mean?
I'm making notes. Go ahead. Preach.
But that is, I think for many of us, that is a true struggle. And so that looks differently for many people. For many people, that looks like that, hey, I walk into the boardroom and I'm handling up on all of the things and I'm running all of the things. And when I get home, it's a completely different person. For some people, that looks like that. I know everything and I'm sitting in the back of the classroom and I know the answers to the questions, but I'm not raising my hand because I don't feel significant enough.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is that one of the reasons why it's hard for people to go to the -5. They have to go to 10 because they have to show their significance. And so that's why, again, guys, we're so adamant about what we do. The work, first of all, the work that we're doing in ourselves, and that we want to help other couples. And, we always say this, people ask, well, what do you guys do? We help couples healed from past experiences so they could be the best version of themselves. Because what we believe is that all of that stuff that you just said, that all plays into how you function in the relationship.
Absolutely.
And it's impossible for you to function properly or in the relationship if I'm not healed. So with that being said, I want to wrap this up. You mentioned attachment styles.
Yeah.
And I know we do an episode on attachment styles. Maybe I want to do another, maybe dive a little bit deeper into that, maybe even bring on someone else to talk about it.
Yeah.
But can you talk a little, just real briefly, tell us what
Go ahead.
Tell us what attachment styles are, and what's the significance of that.
So attachment styles are how we connect in relationships with other people. And they really are developed from our attachments to our caregivers or our nurturers, our mothers, our fathers from the very beginning of life. Okay. And so you have some people that they had maybe very parents who were very attentive, nurturing and loving. And, so they were held often, they were kissed and hugged and told I love yous and all of that. And so they may have a very strong, and I can't even think of, there's 4 of them, of the names of the attachment styles right now. But they have a very secure attachment style. Yeah. And then you may have people who did not get all of that, the holding. We grew up in an age where if you hold that baby, you're going to spoil that baby. Well, no, you actually, babies who are held more, who are comforted and loved on and kissed on, they actually grow up to have really high self-esteem. Yeah. For kids who don't grow up that way, they're wondering about who they are, and that value and that significance and all that. And so you can have anxious attachment. You can have, I think it's like basically being detached, attachment, where you don't attach to people, or you're anxiously attached. It's like you're always asking your significant other, where are you going? Where are you coming? You don't want to sit here by me. It's like, and I'm kind of breaking it way down. There's a lot more to that, but there are these attachment styles that are developed, and they happen at the onset of your life. So
basically, attachment styles is the way we connect.
The way we connect with other people. Did I go too far?
No, I'm just bringing it back. I'm just because I kind of want to drive in on that part. It's all about connection. And one part of attachment styles that we talk about is what's called attunement.
Yes.
And attunement is very important. Basically, attunement is the way, your ability to adapt to other people's emotional needs. And we want to be a well-attuned, I'll say it that way. We want to be a well-attuned person. In other words, we want to be able to recognize when someone else is in emotional stress, so that, and we're in a state of attunement, or maybe not attunement, but we're not in the same state of emotional stress. I'll say it that way. But a lot of times what happens, because we are not well-attuned people, and we haven't learned, because of our attachment style, because of the way we were taught to connect, we oftentimes, when we walk into a room, that when somebody's emotionally stressed, that triggers our trauma and causes us to also be emotionally stressed. So instead of adapting to that person's emotional stress and helping them meet the emotional need or the emotional deficiency that they're experiencing at the moment, what we do is we exacerbate. Is that the word? That emotional trauma, the emotional deficit that they're experiencing, by going to a 5 with them. So what you want in attunement is, you want to be able to say, okay, Tanya's experiencing some things right now. I'm going to back off, and I'm going to just really sit with, what's going on? And that's the opposite. Every reaction in motion, if you want motion, if you want movement in your relationship, every action must have an opposite and equal.
That's so good.
So if she's at a 5, if she goes to, and I'm just using these numbers. I know, it's not. This is not a technical. You won't find this in any psychology today or whatever. But if she goes to a 5, I have to back down to a -5, because if I go to that 5, then we're here,
right?
And really what happen is the -5 will draw that person to you. there's sometimes, like there's one person I talk to often, and he tells me, this is like, man, he's like, I don't know you that well, but it's so easy to talk to you. Mm-hmm. And he would always tell me, one day I just told him, I said, you know why it's so easy to talk to me? He's like, why? I said, because I listen. Mm. And in this conversation, I may not say anything. Mm-hmm. I just let you talk. Mm-hmm. And I just agree and just affirm and confirm, mm-hmm. What you're saying. Mm-hmm. And I don't feel the need to say, well, let me tell you what I know now, mm-hmm. A, B, and C. Mm-hmm. And, one of my heroes is Martin Luther King, mm-hmm. And one of the things that I've read many times about Dr. King is he was a great listener. Mm-hmm. And we think of him as a great communicator, mm-hmm. but everybody talked about how well he listened. Yes. And because he listened so well mm-hmm. to people, he listened to their needs, he listened mm-hmm. to all their complaints, he listened to all these mm-hmm. things, he then could communicate and talk about that. And when he would talk, it would move people because it's like,
and the same things are said about Nelson Mandela as well.
Same thing.
That he, when you're in the room with him, I read that it's like you're the only person. Like mm-hmm. you're the only person in the world because he listens so well mm-hmm. before he speaks and gives a response. And we say that all the time. Seek first to understand. You cannot understand if your mouth is moving. Mm. You have to listen. Again. You cannot understand if your mouth is moving. You are not listening. Or if you are calculating your response in your brain, you are not listening.
Yeah. So and we got to wrap this up.
We do. I didn't even get to my other stuff, but that's okay.
But maybe we'll do mm-hmm. just another episode on this, and I really want to dig into the attachment styles and mm-hmm. and maybe even get some tools to help people find their attachment styles and all mm-hmm. that good stuff. Mm-hmm. But our point is as I really want to hone in on that attunement mm-hmm. is that we have to learn how to adapt to other people. And there's one note that I put on here. Mm-hmm.
That's a good quote.
So part of healing, we talk about helping couples to heal mm-hmm. and be the best version of themselves. But healing, a part of healing and becoming a well-attuned person is repairing broken attachments mm-hmm. or connections. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there's three things, and I get this from our friends over at the kitchen table, mm-hmm. Mark and Melissa Dunwell.
That'd be a good place to go for attachment style.
Yeah, mm-hmm. But they say this, that there's three. We have to repair our connections with Jesus, mm-hmm. others, and ourselves, or yourself. Mm-hmm. Jesus, others, and yourself. Mm-hmm. J-O-I, joy. That's joy. Wow. Jesus, others, and yourself.
Wow.
And it's in those broken connections. That's why we don't know how to, and you kind of talked about it with that baby that you never picked up. Mm-hmm. They're just so used to their needs not being met. Yes. It's just like, if there's any inkling of their need not being met, mm-hmm. well, then I got to make sure you know what I need. Right. Forget what you need. Forget that you're hurting. I'm hurting too. Mm-hmm. And that's what.
That's so good. That's a whole. We got to do a whole nother.
Yeah, and we got to do another conversation about this. But if anything, you get anything out of this, I just really want you to just try your best in situations to practice going to the -5.
Yeah.
And do it. Sometimes I mentioned this, and this is one that I do a lot, is when I'm driving, I try to practice going to the -5.
Take the wheel.
Because I always, somebody cut you off and you're like, look at this idiot. And you're like, wait a minute. And it dawned on me one day, I'm like, I'm probably that idiot. And I'll say one more and then we'll have to wrap it up. But the other day I was going to pick up Olive and I was turning. And one of the things that cooks my grits is when you're waiting to turn left and somebody's coming and they don't put mm-hmm. their signal light on. Mm-hmm. So you're waiting and then they pass you up and it's like, if you'd have put your signal light on, mm-hmm. I could have gone. Now I got to wait for all this traffic. And I was coming and I was turning right and there was a guy waiting to turn left. Mm-hmm. And I didn't put my signal light on. And when I turned, he put his hand out the window and he did. And I thought he was waving at me. So I was like,
he probably said some choice words.
But again, in that moment, I was like, oh, I was the idiot.
You were being the idiot.
I was being the idiot. So I can't get mad at people who are not putting their signal light on because I do that sometimes too. So what was I doing?
You be going the wrong way in the parking lots, but I'm not gonna tell nobody. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you want to? Don't. Shall I bring out the record? But I'm gonna let me attune. I'm sorry. See, right there, I wanted to get back at you. I'm sorry.
I apologize. That was a jab.
No, I was not attuning. My bad. You're right. I do something. But when I do it, I do admit, hey, my bad. I did went the wrong way. I didn't stop to pull
like
the floor up.
Everybody else hear you say my bad. Don't nobody hear you say that but me.
I know, but my point is, it's not for the other people.
I know.
It's for me.
I know. I'm just messing with you.
No, but I'm saying that's a good point, though.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we want people to know. It's like we want people to know how humble we are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like I'm proud of my humility,
mm-hmm.
and that's just. I don't think that could be a thing.
That's interesting.
I can't be proud of how humble. I'm such a humble person. Well, isn't that the opposite of the definition of humility? Wow. Anyway, attunement.
Yes.
When they go to 5, like in the words of our dear sister Michelle Obama, when they go high.
When they go low.
When they go low, you're right. When they go low, we go high.
Yes.
And I'm going to leave it right there.
All right, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll get into this more next week. So thanks for watching. As always, follow us on all the things. Mm-hmm. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. If you're watching on one, follow us on the other. Also, we want to remind you.
Yawning here.
It's all good. We also want to remind you that we are on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts. If you're listening to this, or if you're watching this, you can also listen to it on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. And when you listen, leave us a comment. You know, we want to hear from you.
Feedback.
That's all we got for you today. This is Glenn and Tanya Coleman reminding you that your marriage matters. We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.